Thank you for joining the webinar, What is a Registered Apprenticeship and Can it Work in Your Local Agency? Just in time for National Apprenticeship Week. My name is Erica Manuel, and I am the CEO and Executive Director of the Institute for Local Government. And I'm so pleased to welcome you to this webinar and kickoff event for our Registered Apprenticeship Initiative. In addition to being able to lead the amazing team at the Institute for Local Government, I'm also the proud chair of the Public Sector Subcommittee of the Interagency Council on Apprenticeships. While we're getting everyone joining, we want to make sure you know a little bit about the technology and make sure that you're comfortable with that and some of the housekeeping that we'll have for today's session. As you may have noticed, all participants are on mute for the duration of this event, and we ask you type any questions for your panelists that you might have into the Q&A box. You should see a little icon on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Go ahead and type any questions you have for our panelists into that Q&A box at any time during our discussion or during our presentations, and we'll be trying our best to manage those questions and answer them in real time if we can. And if we don't have time to get to them all during today's session, we'll make sure to follow up with answers to them in the near future. We also received a number of questions from you who registered in advance. Thank you so much for that. We'll do our best to answer those as well during today's session. But if you want to make sure that your question is top of the line, front of the line, feel free to add that question again to this Q&A box and we'll try and get to it. We will have a recording of this webinar and kickoff event, and we'll have that available for all registrants and put it on our website. So you'll be able to see this, hear this, and share it as needed. So our agenda for today is relatively straightforward. We're going to start with a few introductions of some of the people that are going to speak today, as well as sort of how we're going to sort of manage this time that we have together. We'll be announcing a new initiative that ILG will be leading related to registered apprenticeships, and then we'll be giving an overview of apprenticeships for those of you that are new to the concept and want to understand how it can be applied in non-traditional occupations. We'll also hear some perspectives from local governments, including our first pilot jurisdiction for our program, as well as an expert in local government apprenticeships that's been working in this field for quite some time and can talk about the success that has been already had in this general area. We'll also make sure we can share with you how you can get involved. We want to make sure you know that there are opportunities for local governments throughout California to participate in some way or another with this effort, and we would like to give you those options if interested. And we'll, of course, leave some time for Q&A. So I'm so excited to have our speakers today, and they'll be speaking a little bit later. So I'll just do a very, very brief overview of who's on the line today. We have the Honorable Lucas Frericks. He is the chair of the Yolo County Board of Supervisors. We're so excited to be with him today. We're actually in Pasadena at the moment at the CSAC conference, and it's a fantastic opportunity to see some of our county partners, including the Yolo County team. We also have Nicole Picata. She's a strategic business advisor from the Division of Apprenticeship Standards in the Department of Industrial Relations with the state. Nicole's going to speak a little bit about apprenticeships. She knows everything there is to know about registered apprenticeships, and she's going to handle that Apprenticeships 101 overview for you. And then our on-the-ground look is Channing Hawkins. He's the founder of IE Works, and he has some really interesting case studies on how apprenticeships work in water and other fields, particularly in the special district arena. So very, very excited to hear from all of our panelists and speakers today. So before we dive too far in, it's very possible that you know a little bit about ILG, but we always want to make sure you understand who the Institute for Local Government is as far as humans, but also as far as the work that we do, why we do it, and how we do it, and how it connects to the conversation we're going to have today. So the Institute for Local Government is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that is really committed to supporting local governments. For about 70 years now, we have been working with the League of California Cities, which is our founder, as well as CSAC and the California Special Districts Association to provide training and education to all three different types of local agencies, cities, counties, and special districts, of which there are over 2,500 across the state of California. What makes ILG different than those very large associations is that many times they're focused on advocacy. They focus on the Capitol, they focus on policy, they focus on legislation. Well, once that legislation is passed, Then there's the local governments that have to do that work, that implementation on the ground. And so ILG works directly with local agencies to help with that implementation once those decisions have been made. How can we assist local agencies with best practices, implementation techniques that will help build their capacity? Our program areas are leadership and governance, workforce development and civics education, public engagement, and sustainability, including resilient communities, housing, and other areas. And we do education and training in those spaces, technical assistance, capacity building, and convening around key topics related to those key areas. It's really pivotal for us to make sure there's alignment and collaboration across city, county, special district whenever possible. So if we can highlight that, we definitely want to do it. And if we can encourage that or advance that collaboration, we absolutely want to support there. So when we work together with our local governments, either on an individual level or in a group capacity, it's really about helping you navigate complexity, helping you increase your internal capacity, which sometimes we know can be strapped, and also build trust in your communities. So we're talking about workforce development today as it relates to registered apprenticeships. And why do we care about that? Well, from an ILG standpoint, we have some core values, and we know that it's important that we always try to kind of connect the dots with our local governments, which are so focused doing amazing work on the ground and so busy doing so many other things that we want to try to provide an opportunity to support them in ways that'll give conscious counsel, that we can make sure we have a lens around equity and diversity, that we continue to open doors into the public sector, and that we acknowledge that representative democracy is key in really making sure that your communities are reflected in your workforce. That is important and also such a key priority for so many local agencies. So we are very, very excited to announce a new workforce initiative for local governments. We've teased this with our Zoom backgrounds today, but as you can see, we are announcing the Bridge Public Sector Apprenticeships Initiative. And this will be led by ILG, the Institute for Local Government, and is a statewide program that we're very, very excited to partner with numerous organizations on in support of local government workforce development. So what is Bridge? Bridge is a new workforce development initiative, and we're leading it, that's going to help local governments attract and retain talent through registered apprenticeship programs. This is a program that's only open to cities, counties, and special districts, and it's made possible with support from the Irvine Foundation, the California Workforce Development Board, the Broad Foundation, and the Federal Department of Labor. It is a program that is really geared toward addressing what we know are major vacancy concerns and recruitment and retention concerns taking place in California local governments. So why apprenticeships and why now? You may have heard that it is National Apprenticeships Week. I mentioned it at the top of this webinar, and we have been doing a number of activities and events throughout the week to commemorate this 10th anniversary of National Apprenticeships Week. But buzz is really growing around apprenticeships, and it's already taken a foothold in the private sector with additional programs coming online every day. And we know that there is some stiff competition across the board for qualified, trained talent. And we know that local governments, with the incredible work that they have and the incredible missions that they have, deserve and want to have the highest and best staff available. And we want to make sure that we keep our team members and that we are able to grow them and upskill them and reskill them with our wonderful, I would say, really, really well-paying high road local government jobs. We know that the local government workforce is struggling, and there are challenges with poaching, with recruitment, with retention. We've got statistics around 70% of our local agencies are having some of those challenges and thinking differently about how they can approach their recruitment and retention opportunities, particularly in light of our post-COVID environment. And there is an idea that unions, right, can be allies in this effort. And we do appreciate the opportunity in this initiative to partner with unions at the beginning to make sure that programs are developed with unions in mind, with that partnership in mind, and with all of those necessary kind of collaborative conversations taking place to ensure that the programs work for everyone. There is unprecedented funding for apprenticeships right now across the state, across the federal government, and we do believe that this is a great time to take advantage of new grants and other opportunities to leverage funding with community-based partners, educational entities, and more. The key elements of a registered apprenticeship are on-the-job training, classroom instruction, paid employment, some supervision, and industry recognized credentials. And that's really key. And Nicole's going to talk a little bit more about the elements of a registered apprenticeship, but I did want to flag that these are some of the key buckets that make an apprenticeship different than potentially an internship or something a little less formal. And we definitely want to highlight that this is a structured program, and as part of that, it comes with great benefits for employers and for employees. With ILG's Bridge program, we will be focusing on non-traditional, high-demand public sector jobs. As many of you know, registered apprenticeships have been around for quite some time. We know that the trades and the building trades and construction have been doing this for a really long time. Public safety as well. There are tried and true programs and models that are really time-tested and really doing well. Where we haven't seen as much application of the registered apprenticeship model is in those non-traditional trades or areas, specifically in administrative fields like accounting, health and human services, information technology, human resources, and more. Our focus with Bridge will be on those non-traditional occupations because there are equally high vacancy rates in some of those jobs of the future and some of those high demand occupations, hard to fill, hard to keep occupations. We want to help address that side of the workforce pipeline as well. We're going to offer with our program opportunities for career advancement with competitive salaries and benefits. And I think that's what a registered apprenticeship offers. It's that earn while you learn model. So people don't have to wait for significant amounts of time to earn a living wage. And we know that with this program, we'll do something that we've been wanting to do as ILG and that we've heard our local governments desperately want to do across the sector, which is promote local government careers. Not only how great the jobs are, how fantastic our salaries and benefits and competitive they are, but also how valuable and meaningful the work is, how giving back to your community really does make a big difference when you're working at a local agency. So where does ILG fit in this puzzle? So ILG is going to serve as an intermediary for local government apprenticeships. What that means is we're going to provide technical assistance and capacity building, like resources, support, and guidance to local governments to develop customized registered apprenticeship programs. We will launch a pilot initiative for Bridge to test registered apprenticeships in jurisdictions with different demographics and needs. So ILG is going to have sort of a two-pronged approach to Bridge. The overarching Bridge program is a larger effort to support any local agency that wants to learn a little bit about registered apprenticeships. We'll connect to resources, we'll connect to information, we'll connect to contacts. For our pilot initiative, we'll take even deeper technical assistance to those pilot locations and jurisdictions and work very, very closely with them on building their program. So the goals of the pilot program are to develop registered apprenticeships across 5 to 10 high demand occupations with a diverse set of local governments. We're going to build a scalable framework so that we can then look at how we can adopt this statewide and scale it statewide to the 2,500 local agencies that are in California. We really want to reach underrepresented communities and broaden access to public sector careers, particularly for those that maybe aren't aware or don't think that they belong. We're going to reduce the local government recruitment and retention challenges that are taking place by looking within communities, upskilling and reskilling current staff, and thinking creatively about how we can consider who is the workforce of the future for the public sector. As a local government, there are a lot of benefits, including customized support to implement our registered apprenticeship program provided by ILG. We'll help to address the understaffing by helping to create this pipeline of skilled workers, because you'll have a list of people that you know are qualified and well-trained by you to do this work. You can upskill and reskill current employees in critical areas. So let's say you might be kind of downsizing in one area, but you really have a high potential employee. You want to move into another space. It's a great opportunity for upskilling and reskilling. And as it relates to the pilot program, there is no cost for jurisdictions to join the pilot with ILG. Our target occupations are based on a survey that was fielded of local agencies this year. We identified that these are some of our high demand occupations among cities, counties, and special districts, and you can see them on the screen. This is not all of the occupations, certainly. Our pilot jurisdictions will actually let us know what they've identified within their agency is the primary goal for their workforce need moving forward. But we've identified some real strong consistency across jurisdictions statewide that these particular occupations are very, very high demand. Our pilot goal is going to be 5 to 10 occupations with the highest demand so that then we can show a model that can be scalable across the state. For local governments that join Bridge, there is a role for you as well. So ILG will support you with a number of things that are part of the employer responsibilities for apprenticeships. You will help you define the program structure, the metrics, the measurements, and the objectives for your training goals. We'll help you identify the right education and workforce partners. We'll help you hire and pay apprentices. We'll provide on-the-job training, identify supervisors, and select apprentices for full-time employment at the conclusion of the program. All of these are the obligations of the employer, though you can get assistance from ILG to accomplish any of these things, in addition to research or other things that may be helpful for your particular pilot effort. And now I'd like to turn it over to one of our favorite counties, which is has signed up as our first Bridge pilot jurisdiction. I'm so excited to have on the line today Honorable Lucas Frericks. He is the chair of the Yolo County Board of Supervisors, and he is actually representing Yolo County, which has signed on as our first Bridge pilot. We went to the counties and to the cities and the special districts in a very kind of low-key way over the last few months, sharing what our initiative would be, identifying, what the opportunities would be for partnership with Bridge and with ILG. And we're so excited that Yolo County has met all of the criteria, and they're very excited to join our Bridge program. And so Lucas is going to talk a little bit about what that means for Yolo County. He's going to tell us a little bit about Yolo County. And he's a longtime public servant with a phenomenal experience in community and in Yolo and in just understanding the ins and outs of local government, of workforce, of equity, and all of the key values that Bridge represents. Lucas, thank you for being here.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thanks so much, Erica. Really, really grateful to spend some time with you this morning. And just want to thank to ILG, first of all. The ILG has, you heard, over 70 years, old now, but long-time partner in helping local governments with innovative new programs and sharing best practices across many different issue areas. And I was fortunate enough to work with ILG when I was previously on the Davis City Council and now on the Board of Supervisors. So really, really grateful for that continued partnership. First of all, give a little bit of an overview of the items that I was asked to speak about today, certainly the context and Yolo County, and just say we're very, very excited to be one of the pilot agencies participating in this program. Apprenticeships have had a long and proven track record of success in the construction trades. That's been mentioned already, but I think it's really important to note. And I think it's also really important to note that we are all of our, I think, local government jurisdictions are facing workforce challenges in terms of hiring and recruiting new employees and such, and retention. So I think it's a really exciting next steps. And so excited to see this innovation come sort of to the local governments in this way. So first off, let's talk a little bit about just demographics of YOLO. Folks may be certainly aware, there's a lot of folks from all over the state on this webinar, but we're a suburban county adjacent to Sacramento County and the state capital, so Northern California, with a diverse mix of urban and rural environments. But we're also an agricultural county. This is a picture behind me of part of my district. I'm represent Davis and UC Davis and also the city of Winters, but a lot of rural area as well, you can see, and from behind me. We push most of our growth, urban growth, into the 4 incorporated cities. And so we are home in Yolo County to about 220,000 people, 76,000 households, four major cities. So Woodland, West Sacramento, Winters, and Davis. Of course, home to UC Davis, #1 ag school in the country, and also the Yochadihi Winton Nation, an essential tribal partner of ours and other local government in our county. And so really grateful for all of our collaboration over the years with them as well too. A little bit about the demographics, in addition to just sort of the populations and such, just a little bit of sort of racial breakdown and ethnicity. So, county is YOLO is 44% white, 32% Hispanic or Latinx, 16% Asian American, 6% two or more races, 3% African American, and then 2% American Indian or Alaska Native. And so, just a little detail there, but also according to the PPIC, and important to note, Yolo County, so Public Policy Institute of California, I should say, PPIC, Yolo County has consistently for several times they've done surveys on this across the state, also has the highest poverty rate in California at approximately 19.5%. So a lot of interesting, certainly some wealth too, but a lot of poverty. And so that's something that counties certainly do as part of one of their main missions is taking care of vulnerable populations. So I think in what regard makes Yolo County special, right? I think I often refer to Yolo County as sort of the Goldilocks County, right? It's not too small with too few resources, and it's not too big to make and laborious to make major changes. So we're just right, right? We have the right size, close to Sacramento capital. We're great location for pilot programs to occur. We work collaboratively. We have what we call the YOLO way. We work really a culture of collaboration and to solve problems with each other as well too. With regard to our workforce goals, I think it's no secret societally we're facing what some have called a silver tsunami, which is just this major waves of retirements coming as population is aging. Yolo County is not unlike other counties, has historically had high vacancy rates in key departments that serve the people of Yolo County. Our goal through this apprenticeship pilot program and in partnership with our local community college district is that we can help raise awareness of jobs within the county, demonstrate career paths within the public sector, and also further explore this innovative solution to address workforce needs. The positions that we are focusing on initially are primarily related to fiscal support. So these types of roles have proven challenging to fill across various industries, includes such jobs as accounting technician or payroll technician in the sort of the financial departments, financial services department, or in also our human resources departments. We're also looking at the public assistance specialist role. Historically, we've been challenged to recruit sufficient staffing for this position, and the gaps have had a significant impact on our residents, especially those who are applying for CalFresh and other benefits. And you recall that I mentioned the sort of high poverty rate. We have a lot of residents in our county that are CalFresh beneficiaries, for example. And so having these positions be vacant is a real challenge. Delays in CalFresh for applications, seriously have negatively impact those who are already suffering from food insecurity. So it's essential that we have these roles filled in a more expeditious manner. Increasing enrollment in CalFresh benefits of our residents who are food insecure, and also the economy by pulling in federal dollars into our local grocery stores. And so that's another reason for wanting to make sure that we sort of figure out how to recruit and retain public assistance specialists. It's a really important role for us. As it relates to diversity and equity goals, I would say, we've had a great success in Yolo County in advancing the diversity of our workforce to reflect the diversity of the residents of Yolo County. We see the apprenticeship pilot as another opportunity to reach out to a wide range of potential employees and raise the awareness of public sector careers, which are often quite good. So, and I think in meaningful jobs, and people have abilities for advancement and such as well. So I think it's so important for that. And then sort of, finally, I just would say last set of items is around, in my role as a county supervisor to helping to advance this work, I was first heard about this item actually about a year ago, and at the annual CSAC, California State Association of Counties Conference. Erica was giving a presentation on this pilot program and what was going to be launched. And so, just following that, I immediately reached out to ILG for an opportunity to participate. I thought this was a great, went back and talked to our chief administrative officer and our HR director, and but really wanted us to sort of see if we could get in on the ground floor of something as innovative as this. One of the roles that I maintain as a county supervisor, I think, is really just around being a problem solver, and also I think also as a convener. And so was really, really happy to sort of try and get us all together to have those types of discussions to see if we could participate. We brought our key county staff together in a meeting with ILG to learn more about the potential of this program and to help address ongoing workforce gaps in county staffing. And, again, I mentioned this at the outset, but it's so true. And it's just, I'm so grateful that this expansion is happening. Apprenticeships have a long history of success in various industries, and especially the construction trades. And I'm so excited to bring this innovative model to support our broader local government workforce in Yolo County. And so, this wraps up my portion of the webinar today and our overview of the situation in YOLO, and just want to thank you all again for participating. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions if there are some, and apologize, I have to leave a little bit early. Can't say to the end of the webinar, I've got to get back to the conference, but really appreciate the opportunity to participate today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lucas. We appreciate you, Supervisor Frericks, and we appreciate Yolo County. And what I think your kind of overview has provided us is certainly, and hopefully the audience, is like there is a role for any kind of level of local agency official to play in this, right? If you have elected leadership support, it's absolutely critical. If you have staff support, amazing. And those, I think the real perfect, three-legged stool is having all of those key players.
Yeah.
Really bought in. And so, as you hear about the demographics of Yolo County, we really felt like Yolo County really checked all the boxes for what we were looking for in a pilot jurisdiction. And it was certainly our pleasure to work through that checklist and say, yeah, this seems just right on track. So thank you, Supervisor Frericks, and thanks to the Yolo County team. It's been absolutely amazing as we've worked through building out this program and knowing that Yolo County was already on board.
Thank you. You're so welcome. Appreciate it.
If there are any questions for Supervisor Frericks, we're happy to take those in the Q&A. And you can continue to add those to the Q&A and we'll get to them. And what we'll do, because he does need to leave early, is in between presentations, we'll ping Supervisor Frericks and make sure that he has the opportunity to answer any questions directed at him. As an elected and the role that he plays, and certainly with his optics around sort of how that structure works and the interplay with the staff and the elected teams, as well as just how to move that through the approval process. So appreciate your participation. And if you have any questions for Supervisor Frericks, feel free to add those. We're going to continue with our presentations, it looks like, because I don't see any questions at the moment. What I will say is that as you continue to add questions in the Q&A, our team is continuing to answer them. So thanks to the team ILG in the back. And we did have one little technical difficulty, it sounds like, with some sound issues. And that if you continue to have those, feel free to log off and log back on. And that might help. But do know that, of course, we will be providing this recording available in a couple of days after the session. We know that there's our new world is involved with lots and lots of technology, but also sometimes technology issues. And so our next speaker may or may not be on camera today, but you should be able to hear her. And it's Nicole Picata. She's going to speak with us a little bit about the basics of apprenticeships. And we're going to make sure that you know the general overview of that to answer some of those questions, which we saw come in earlier before the session, about just how does it work and who's allowed and what are some of the details. Nicole's going to cover a lot of that, and then anything she doesn't cover, we'll make sure to get to it as well before our next presentation. Nicole Picata.
Thank you so much, Erica. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak about apprenticeships. And you are correct, technology is wonderful, but because I want to be able to give a clear and concise presentation, I will keep my camera off. So if we can begin, please.
Absolutely.
So as Erica indicated, my name is Nicole Picata. I am a strategic business advisor with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. Now, here's a mouthful: Apprenticeship and Workforce Innovation Unit. Yes, I work to assist in developing a diverse and highly skilled workforce that gives Californians a viable career path. And I work in specifically in those non-traditional sectors that Erica was speaking about. I also sit as the advisor for the Interagency Homeless and Foster Youth Subcommittee that was supported by Assembly Bill 565, introduced in 2021. In addition to that, I also sit as support advisor in the Public Sector Committee along with Erica. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, as a supervisor mentioned, um, you know, have you ever wondered what does it take to bridge that gap between untapped potential and career success? Well, here we have the answer for that. Here in the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, we're more than a regulatory body. We're a visionary force driving opportunity and equity in the workforce. Imagine a system where learning doesn't just stop in the classrooms, but individuals from all walks of life, young students, career changers, veterans, even those seeking a second chance, gain real world life experience while earning a paycheck. Well, that's what we do. Our mission is simple yet powerful: to create a highly skilled, inclusive workforce that meets the evolving needs of California's dynamic economy. And we accomplish that by fostering, promoting, and regulating apprenticeship programs that ensure both economic and personal growth. You can see that's done in our next slide just by looking at our powerhouse. The powerhouse, we are growing. If you take a look at our public facing dashboards, we're growing to approximately over 96,000 registered apprentice right now. And we are growing steady, and we are growing surely to meet that audacious goal that the governor set of 500,000 apprentices by the year 2029. Next slide, please. In addition to registering here in the state, it is also important for dual enrollment. And ILG has been an instrumental part of working with DAS as we work with the Department of Labor. Dual registration is important because the system consists of these two entities responsible for registering and overseeing a RAP, a Registered Apprenticeship Program. While there are some differences between the federal registration and the state registration, both are here with the same goal, and that is to function. We function similar and guiding partners on each phase of developing a program. Next slide. We talk about this in California's 5-point action plan on apprenticeship, which aims to revolutionize the workforce development by expanding equitable access to apprenticeship opportunities across diverse and multiple industries. And as you can see, part of that expansion is the expand state and local public sector apprentice. Next slide. I think that Erica spoke with you and showed you some of the different sectors, and that's what sets registered apprenticeship apart from is their adaptability and the diversity. Being able to be diverse, not only in the building and trades, but today's apprenticeship programs are thriving across a whole array of industry. And we're here to help design those opportunities, ensuring quality and promoting equity. Next slide. So you may wonder, who are those stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders who are expanding apprenticeship? Well, we'll first start with the employer. The employer identifying the needs, what occupation, what needs, what hiring needs do they require? And of course, as Erica also mentioned, partnering with that labor, especially in the public sector. Oftentimes a labor or a union collective bargaining agreements are vital, are important, and collaborating early on is very important. They're part of the committee, the Joint Apprenticeship Committee that's eventually evolved. In addition to that, you have your educators. That is considered what we call the LEA, your local educational agency. Here we look towards our community partners, our public entities, our community colleges, our four-year universities, sometimes reaching out to the districts to provide that support, looking at dual enrollment opportunities. The LEA is important because they sanction the curriculum. Whether it's an employer's own training and development, that LEA is going to either sanction or you'll find ways to collaborate and promote, and they will deliver that. The other is the apprentice. Of course, we know that that apprentice is important, and ILG has done a remarkable job in not only identifying employers, but also identifying those in need. As I mentioned earlier, you have your career changers, you have your youth, veterans. All of these have individuals have the opportunity to learn while earning and um, become an apprentice, excuse me. You also have your community-based organizations. That community-based organizations can be nonprofit. Those community-based organizations are also providing those additional supports, sometimes being able to bridge in transportation, finding ways to provide daycare, providing emotional support. There are oftentimes where they come in providing additional mentor support. So finding those community-based organizations to work with is so important in the entire landscape of apprenticeship. And of course, we have the intermediary. Now, what that means is that individual, as you see in the yellow circle, that individual, that stakeholders, those stakeholders convene all of the entities together to begin those conversations, to develop, to start to look through what are some of the issues, to identify those occupations, and work with the program to continue to monitor and to administer the program. In this case, that intermediary could be ILG. But the wonderful thing is apprenticeship is flexible. Next slide. So when we speak about apprenticeship, we're talking about a structured education and training program. That is called, that's part of the on-the-job training, what we call the OJT or your work processes. Those are defined there. Generally, they have competencies that you're able to reach. Looking at your HR or going to your human resources or labor management, identifying the job description is the beginning of how to identify and structure those work processes, or OJT. The RSI, the related supplemental instruction, that part of the classroom, while it's recommended 144 hours in RSI instruction, again, that flexibility is there because as you'll see in two more slides, the way in which we can structure an apprenticeship is either going to be on a time-based, a competency-based, or in a hybrid model. So the employer, of course, we mentioned, and you saw at the top of our Venn diagram, the employer. The employer is will be the entity that is paying that apprentice a W-2 and it's a full paid experience. These experiences also have, and the program is structured to incorporate a wage progression, whether that wage progression is identified in the collective bargaining agreement or discussed through the committee. It is still there to make sure that that apprentice is given that opportunity to thrive. Next slide. So you may
Actually,
ask,
let's go back one slide. I think we missed one
yes,
slide.
sure.
I think you're talking about this one.
Yes, that's the slide I need. Yes.
The one, can you go back really quickly now,
Sure.
Nicole? Just talk to the one. This is the slide. I'm going to hold that up for just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was speaking on that, looking at my
Nope, you're
screen.
good. It just wasn't on our screen. So I just want to give people
Okay,
a chance
my
to see
apologies.
that one.
Yeah, let
And
me
then
go
we'll
back
move
to
on
that.
to the internship question, which I think there's
Okay.
some questions about.
Okay, let me just talk about this a little bit more, just because in case you didn't see it. The apprenticeable occupation. I think there was a question early about waste management. When you're speaking with ILG and they're speaking with us and we're coming together, that's what we're working on, is to identify what that occupation would be. And that is done through an ONET code, which best suits the company's needs. Okay. So next slide, unless there are any other questions, Eric, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Nope, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So you may ask yourself, well, what's the difference between an internship and a registered apprenticeship? And notice I said registered apprenticeship because that is important. Oftentimes, non-registered apprenticeship programs who self-identify as apprenticeship programs may be acting as an internship, but if they're not fully registered here in the Division of Apprenticeship Standards or with the Department of Labor, they are not a registered apprenticeship program who will be fully credentialed and receive a credential that is portable, not only through the state, but again, nationally. The purpose of an apprenticeship program is to cultivate a talent pipeline. Whereas if you think of an internship, what that does is it introduces a young person to a particular industry. The length of an apprenticeship program is typically 1 to 5 years because they're growing. There, you have spaces like in the education space and to become a teacher. We know that that could take longer than your typical internship, which would be on average 12 weeks. The compensation, as I explained earlier in my previous slide with the wages and the compensation is there. The apprentice is a W-2 employee, excuse me. Whereas an internship, generally they're not. Well, they may receive some type of stipend. In most cases, in an internship, you're not employed. The supportive partners. In the Venn diagram, you saw that, as I mentioned, the community-based organizations, entities as ILG, those supportive partners are there to collaborate, to build the program together. Whereas in that internship, generally it's just the employer and the LEA who may communicate or may put something out looking for, but it's not deep diving and understanding what is actually going to build a talent pipeline for your needs to grow your community. Resulting credentials, I spoke about that. National, state, sometimes these are also dual enrollment where the individual is coming out not only with the state recognition or a national recognition, but sometimes with their credentials with degrees. And an internship, an individual may receive a certificate of acknowledgement. College credits, I continue to talk about this and it continues to expand. Finding dual enrollment opportunities so an individual coming out of high school is already a junior and ready to receive an AA, going into the UCs or completing a particular AA degree or some particular certificate. They've received that mentorship. They've received that support. And I think that that is what helps build success. The funding opportunities are there and they're definitely available. Next slide. So I just want to just briefly speak about this, and then I think I'm going to be wrapping it up because this is what's important, the type of apprenticeships. There is time-based, competency-based, or hybrid. And this is also what makes it viable. In the non-traditional spaces, we are seeing more and more, and traditionally they built on competencies, where you're measuring the progression based on how the apprentice is reaching and performing those particular competencies built within the program. A hybrid program bridges both of those, both time-based and hybrid competencies. Generally, time-based programs you see in the traditional space. Next slide. I recommend that you contact Erica, partnering with us and ILG. We're here to address your needs. We can build those partnerships, identify the LEAs, discover that talent pool, connect you with funding sources. The conversations and are there to move the program development. The collaboration, it does take collaborations, and having those partners together is what's important. I ask all of you and charge all of you to look at what your community needs, look at what your individual agency needs, and connect with IOG so that we can start having these discussions in fuller detail. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much, Nicole. We had questions just pouring in, so we've got quite a few for you. What we'll do is we'll take a couple, maybe we'll take one or two. I think you did try really hard to get quite a few in there during your presentation. Let's take this last one that came in about a certificate of occupational competence. What would be considered a certificate of occupational competence if it does not exist within that profession?
If there is a regulatory agency, that's where we first address and identify that. As an IACA, the interagency, we are a recommending agency. We make recommendations here at DAS, as long as that occupation, and we can work through that, has an identifiable ONET code, we can structure it. There are ways to structure it. So there's no stopping. With DOL, there may be some challenges with the Department of Labor. They are limited, and it does take a little bit more time for them to make valid and apprenticeable occupation. And that is a word, apprenticeable. So yes, it is available. We can do it, Erica. We can do it.
Sounds like we can do it. Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. We'll have additional questions and time with Nicole a little bit later, but we do want to keep going so we can make sure we get a chance to talk to our next presenter. And I do think that we've answered all of the questions about Yolo County, but I want to make sure that that is correct. Our Yolo County jurisdiction, we're working with them on the pilot occupations that were mentioned, which is payroll technicians and sort of more of an accounting and finance roles, but then also those social services roles that can be maybe easier to fill, but hard to keep, right? And so we're constantly seeing a churn in those across some of our county partners. And so that the social services and mental and behavioral health we're seeing have some high demand and high turnover. And so we're definitely exploring some of those occupations. But we've also seen a number of questions in here about what occupation can we use? Is it non-traditional or not? We would go through and talk, as Nicole mentioned, with each agency, and then we would do a crosswalk with the ONET code to find out if it's a traditional or non-traditional, and which some of those occupations that have been listed in some of the questions are a little bit on the gray. We would check and see if it belongs in the traditional side or the non-traditional side. And if we find that it has a high demand across our local agencies and we find that there is a need for it, it's something we could apprentice, as Nicole just mentioned, an apprenticeable occupation, then we could work on it and it could be our pilot. So we aren't saying no to anything right now. We're saying maybe let's talk about it. Let's see if it works. That's the beauty of a pilot. It's customizable, and our intention is to work directly with our agencies on whatever their sticky issues are. And part of the thing around this pilot is our intention is to scale this statewide. So we want to see the unique issues that different size jurisdictions have, different geographic types, all the different occupational types, and see how we can work out maybe a little bit more of a streamlined solution for statewide scalability after the pilot is complete. So that's part of our bridge pilot goals, and certainly one benefit that our pilot participants have with working with ILG and partnering with DAS and others on our apprenticeships team. So with that, we're going to jump into our next presentation. I'm so excited to have Channing Hawkins on the line with us. We're going to make sure his tech is working and he can be seen and heard. Channing has some very deep experience in just getting these apprenticeships done at the ground level. And when we talk about implementation in a local agency, that's sometimes critical for us, right? We can talk up here, right, strategically about it and philosophically about it, but where the rubber hits the road is what matters. And Channing's going to talk to us a little bit about that. Channing, are you able to hear us, and can we hear you?
Yes, I can hear you all, and I'm going to share screen. Before I
we've got your presentation in here.
Okay.
So if you want to say next slide, we're good.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's just the way I like it. Easy to do. So first of all, I want to thank the Institute for Local Government for taking on this challenge and helping to address one of the biggest challenges that we have coming up, not only in our local communities in our state and our country. The work that Erica Manuel is doing with her team, I was really impressed with the presentation by Supervisor Frericks. And I wanted to, I didn't know why I got chosen to present after Nicole Picada because she did such an excellent job of laying out everything. So excuse me if I'm redundant on a few things. Um, I'm going to talk about my experience with IE Works, which is a water technology-based program which started back in 2020, which is a regional-based a pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship program focused on water and wastewater in the inland region, meaning San Bernardino and Riverside County. Next slide. It, started as a part of the High Road Training Partnership. That was the funding source for us and based on that model from the state and the Department of Labor. Next slide. We're going to go over a few things: setting the stage, preparing the framework, the history of IE Works, the IE Works programs and goals, as well as the outcome and successes. Setting the stage. I think right now, everyone here has an interest, whether it is on their own agency's needs or their regional needs as far as helping to shape their future economy and workforce. For us, one of the major drivers when I was first elected in the water and exploring the workforce, I saw that some of the reports, particularly this report by the Brookings Institution, that there's a silver tide and that we're looking at 50% vacancies. And for other individuals, the labor participation rates, particularly for people in what we call Generation Z, as well as males and other individuals, their labor participation rates are also shrinking. So in order to solve the problem between the retirements and the future engagement that we need in order to build the infrastructure, we developed the concept of this program. We also studied, this report determined that there was over 1 million more open positions than there were workers to fill them. We also looked at our local economy in the Inland Empire, which is much like other parts of California that was based on manufacturing, particularly, in the Air Force bases that had closed, like Norton had closed locally, Kaiser Steel, which was a significant employer in our region, and as well. And so trying to create a new economy with the current workforce that we have. Next slide. Preparing the framework for IE Works. I think the biggest thing, and when I was listening to Supervisor Frericks, he was in the same position I was, in that he saw an issue, saw that it needed to be addressed, and reached out to the experts or other potential stakeholders in order to implement it. I would say for any local leader, particularly political or elected local leader or general manager, city manager, or so forth, the first thing is to just show some initiative and get behind it. Obviously, if you're an elected official, you don't run the day-to-day operations, but as a policy initiative, workforce is something significant. And sometimes the planning around workforce is not intentionally put on the back burner, but you may be addressing current needs and services that you need to provide. And so how to build a pathway and develop that bench or the next set of employees may not always come as a priority. So I would say the first thing is for elected officials to step up and inquire about it and start to bring in stakeholders who can help them address it. For IE Works, it started with local water leaders. We met, myself and another woman named Gracie Torres, who's on the western water board met, and as like the millennials, we just said, hey, there's not enough millennials elected in water. And one of the issues where we saw a joint interest was the workforce and trying to challenge that. She had her own interest because as a woman who was a scientist,
Wondering if Channing, did we lose Channing? Yeah, I think we've lost Channing a bit. His sound seems to be off. We talked about technical difficulties and it sounds like we might have one. Christy, let's jump to the next slide and see if Channing can keep the slides up, but let's jump. Maybe Channing, if you can turn your camera off, that might help. We might have lost Channing. We will continue to roll with the punches. That's okay.
Okay.
What we'll do is we will come. Oh, is he back?
I'm back. I'm back. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but let's keep your camera off just to be safe.
Okay. All right. We'll do that.
We've moved you forward to the IE work slide because we're running a little light on time. So we
Okay.
just wanted to. Perfect.
right.
Thank you, Channing.
So the next one is IE Works. We started in November 2020. We were notified of our success of successfully being selected for both federal and state funding, which came in the amount of 1.2 million. West Valley Water District was the district that I was a part of. We formalized the career pathways. I know it's been mentioned with our local education agency, which was San Bernardino Valley College, in order to provide credits and training. We began in March 2021 as the new Regional Water Wastewater Workforce Collaborative. We put together a summit where we invited stakeholders who were already participants and some who we thought would have an interest. And then between March of 2021 to March of 2023, we had 7 agencies within our region join IE Works and formed a 501c3 organization. Next slide. The overview of services, we had a cross-regional replication of a program called Bay Works that was in the Bay. We were able to be able to apply it to the needs of our region based on our partnerships and what we identified as the goals. But we used the existing model that we built off of. We used the $1.5 million of funding. Through March of 2024, we created a training model, and the short-term goals were to create paid internships, pre-apprenticeship pathway, registered apprenticeships for hard-to-fill jobs, and create high school awareness. We also supplied supportive services that was mentioned in Ms. Picata's slide regarding childcare, transportation, et cetera. Next slide. This is one of the things that I think in creating these types of locally based organizations, we had to create a nonprofit and governance structure. So we had a board of directors, which was made up of representatives of all of the participating agencies. We had our technical advisors, so very similar like ILG or other partners would be with JVS. We had an industry advisory panel who were practitioners in the field who served as subject matter experts as well as industry experts. We also had a community steering committee, and I want to talk about that a little bit. The community steering committee was made of locally based organizations that work on priority populations. In our particular instance, that were kids that were aging out of foster care or the child welfare system, individuals and particularly young people coming out of probation, as well as women and veterans and individuals who were coming from economically depressed areas. So we engage with nonprofits that focus on those various populations. We created an apprenticeship committee and evaluation subcommittee as well. That's what worked for us. And these are all the different stakeholders and how we formed our governance structures. They would have routine meetings where they would, discuss various matters that pertain to that particular committee. Next slide. Again, who we prioritize for training were veterans, women, workers from Black, Latino, and other communities, residents re-entering the workforce, former foster care, and workers in communities that is in a disproportionate burden of income inequality and environmental inequality as well. Next slide. The internship program. This is something that's really important because there's been a shift in job readiness and preparation. And in order for someone to be successful with an apprenticeship program, not only do we need to provide supportive services, but there needs to be training in order to bridge the gap and get them ready for work. So one of the things that we did was target students enrolled in community college trades programs. We created a 12-week paid internship where they would go and gain experience in water, whether that was from operations, customer service, meter readings. They included shadowing and performing basic duties. Our grant wasn't as robust as the grant that we were talking about for the Bridge program. We were only able to support with 1/3 of the wages. We were able to work with the employer expectations and setting those expectations, providing substantial work product by building a diverse workforce and pipeline, and vetting potential entry-level applicants. And so a number of our agencies didn't even allow us to do apprenticeship because once they would get them in the pre-internship, then they would offer them a job. Based on those results, we had 29 paid interns and 25 were placed in the full-time jobs between March of 2022 and October of 2023.
Still there, Channing? We might have lost him. Let's keep that slide moving forward. See if that helps. And we'll just skim through these so that everyone can kind of see them. The program incorporated high schools and those at all different levels. And really was comprehensive. And I think what's really phenomenal about this program, and part of the reason we wanted to bring it today as part of our Bridge launch, is because it does provide a snapshot of the continuum of internship to pre-apprenticeship to registered apprenticeship, that model, which is fascinating. And as part of ILG's Bridge program and its expanded Bridge program with some of our federal support, we are expanding into pre-apprenticeships and schools. And so that's something that we'll be expanding into in the coming months and in years. And so we're excited to kind of see the link here and then also connect some of the dots so that local agencies can see this is how all of those pieces might connect. Next slide. So there is grant funding, obviously, that partnerships are pretty key to. And so I know that IE Works was a big collaborative that did go in on funding jointly with a number of its partners. That's a model that certainly ILG will be using as well, and certainly one in which, as part of a Bridge pilot program, we would work with our agencies to support some of the funding. So as I think Channing mentioned, some of the cost of some of the apprentices was covered in some of their grant. We don't have funding for payment and payroll. That is currently the employer's responsibility, but there is opportunities for ILG as part of Bridge to support you as local agencies with grant applications and others to help offset some of the costs of that. The other thing that ILG does have, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in our section about the pilot, is that as part of our funding mechanism for our pilot program and our philanthropic funding, we'll be able to collaborate with community-based organizations and others and even provide some additional funding for those community-based partners to provide wraparound services around that training to ensure that your apprentices are successful. Next slide. So there's still apparently accepting IE Works signatories if you're in that region, and I will move to the next slide because I don't want to commit. you to that without Channing saying it. And then this is their website. Next slide. So water and wastewater are an option, right? Different occupations have different demands and different needs across regions. And one of the things that I think the Bridge program will do is provide some customizable opportunities for you to say, this is what we need in our jurisdiction. Next slide. All right, so now it's back up to me to talk about how you can get involved in the Bridge program. So how are we going to select the remaining pilots? So as you heard Supervisor Frericks talk about, there were some pretty good criteria coming from Yolo County. Part of the reason why, after going through that vetting process, we said this seems like a really great fit is because we look at all the things on the screen: the type, the size, the geography, the capacity and interest, the diversity, and the workforce need. Those are the things that we're considering as we explore who the next pilot, which next pilot jurisdictions will be added, and when. We want a mix of city, county, special district. We want a mix of population size, and we want a mix of geography. We don't want all urban or all rural. We really want to see a mix of those because we want to know how it can work across agency type. We want to understand how big your staff is, right? We want this to work for small and large staff sizes, because we know that some of our lowest capacity jurisdictions are some of our small ones. There was a question in the chat about, can we do this with just one occupation? In theory, yes, you can. And we might have a registered apprenticeship program with just one occupation, right? And just one apprentice to get started. We want to be able to test the model. We want to identify what the options are. And so we won't necessarily turn you away because you don't have the highest number. What we do want to make sure you do is you have an occupation that is eventually high demand for other jurisdictions. So even if you only have 1 or 2 or 5 different ones that you'll need to potentially hire for over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, you may have an occupation that is very high demand for other agencies statewide, which would make it still a potentially viable pilot. Again, diversity is key. Staffing goals are key. We really do want to make sure that we're living that value. And we want to make sure that your workforce need matches up with other workforce needs across the state so that we can create a framework and a model that can be scaled. If you are interested in joining the Bridge pilot, it's actually pretty easy. You just submit an interest form at bridgeapprenticeships.org, and we will schedule consultations with some of our top candidates to assess your workforce needs, to assess your readiness and your interest, and find out if it's a good fit. We're going to keep this pilot program open and accepting applications until we're full. How do you know when we're full? Well, it's based on our capacity and also our funding. So as I mentioned, we have funding that's kind of rolling in. We have existing funding already that's on a time-bound timeline with our philanthropic funders and our state funders. We've recently been awarded a federal grant that we're still working through the logistics of, that's going to expand our ability to support this, and also expand our ability to bring in school districts that might want teacher apprenticeships as well. We'll also be building in a pre-apprenticeship program as far as that federal program, and we'll do federal registration of your occupation as well. So a lot of exciting additions to the Bridge program with some recent developments with the grant from the DOL. And as part of that, that's a benefit for local governments. And so additional benefits to you because of those programs. And so we'll be building that out, and you'll be hearing more from us and our partners in those programs to talk about how we can apply that even more specifically to your needs. We do think that this is going to be very busy. We've already gotten quite a lot of interest, so we encourage you to fill out that application form, an interest form, and then let us reach out to you if you want to be considered. And you also can reach out to us if you're a Bridge partner. We already had somebody note in the Q&A that they had a contact for us and they wanted to connect us with. We love that. If you are an education institution, a community-based organization, a labor union, there are a number of ways that you can partner with the Bridge program and with ILG. We are, as you can see in the organizational chart that Channing shared, it is a mix, right, of a large ecosystem to pull these apprenticeship programs together. We've got the state, we've got community-based organizations, we've got training providers. We are working with all of them. We just launched a press release today announcing Bridge, and in that press release, you'll also see a quote from the California Community Chancellor's Office, Chancellor Sonia Christian. And Dr. Christian was able to work with us over the last few months, and ILG and the CCC have an MOU that will help really wrap around some of the community college programs and opportunities to link their curriculum to local government workforce needs, and specifically this apprenticeship program. We're very, very excited to partner with our statewide with local community colleges and other education institutions to provide the training and supplemental instruction that is important to making these apprenticeships work. We have a new website. It's the Bridge website, bridgeapprenticeships.org. It just launched today. We hope you will take a look at it. It is new, it is live, and it is being updated daily, and it will be continue to be updated with new resources and materials. As I mentioned in a previous slide, ILG is an intermediary for local government. Apprenticeships will be continuing to add resources, content, materials that will help you along your apprenticeships journey if you're in the pilot or not. And for our pilot participants, you get even more deep technical assistance around that. But we hope that you will visit our new website. And on that, you'll find even more information about Bridge, maybe that we didn't cover today, some frequently asked questions. And I think it was just dropped in the chat, a process document that speaks to how this all works. What are the actual steps at a glance for how this program would work if you were in the pilot? What does it take? What is the time commitment? How does this all come together? Great process infographic, and a PDF and website is linked in the chat for everyone to see. So we are at the stage now where we can actually formally ask questions. I'm going to ask our panelists that remain to come back on the line if you can, and join me in our Q&A. We've got a lot of questions, some of which we answered live, some of which we're going to try and get through. And as I said, I've committed, if we didn't get to it all today, we 100% will make sure that they are included in a recap email to registrants, or they're included on our website, added to the Q&A. We already have an FAQ that's out on that document, on that website as well, which might have answered some of these, but we'll make sure to get some of those answered as well. All right, so we have a lot coming through. Let's see if we can triage some of this. Is the pilot program free if you are accepted? The organization does not need to pay ILG anything if you're accepted into the pilot. And if you're an intermediary, if you're coming to ILG for some support around apprenticeships, you may also we don't charge for that. You do need to pay as an employer. You do need to pay your own salary and benefits for your employees. We might be able to help with some community-based organization funding, right, to help you with recruitment or to help you with wraparound services. But your actual employee wages, those are covered by the employer. The exception to that is if we worked with you on a grant and that was something that could be potentially covered for you. There are also in our federal grants some very limited employer incentive dollars that we have. So while we can't pay for the employees' salaries or benefits, we can provide a little bit of funding to the employer as an incentive for participating in the program. I think I answered the costs to ILG question. Let's see. I'm going to push this one to Nicole. Nicole, we have a question about solid waste and recycling agencies and JPAs. They have a current dramatic increase in need for staff with expertise in organics recovery. Could that be a focus of such non-traditional apprenticeships? Based on your best guess, is that still in the IACA non-traditional space, or is that more of a other apprenticeship one?
Based on my best guess, there could be some occupations that cross over. However, that could be a way of developing by not including those particular processes, allowing individuals to climb up the career ladder. So again, there is flexibility to consider. Think of it as a career pathway.
Great. This is a question for Channing. Somebody is supporting an LEA in the Bay Area seeking to register a water operator apprenticeship with DAS. Has IE Work succeeded in registering a water sector apprenticeship with DAS? If so, in which apprenticeshable occupations and with what employers and union partners? Do you happen to know?
We have not yet. We are in the process of doing that. Yes, we're in the process of doing that now.
Thank you for that question. Assuming that residents re-entering mean those formerly incarcerated, that is correct to that one. That is what we were referring to. Let's see what other questions we have coming in. Is there a timeline or a target date for when other agencies will be able to participate in the apprenticeship programs or help develop them? I think we answered that. So we're accepting Bridge pilot applications now. And that's a rolling basis until full. And we are looking for, like I said, that geographic diversity, that size diversity, that demographic diversity. We want to see the city, county, special district. We want a mix of all the things. ILG specifically is remaining focused on cities, counties, and special districts. But in our expanded partnership with the federal project that we have, we've got other partners that are phenomenal that will also be expanding to schools, K-12 schools, and others. And those are going to be accepting, but not quite ready yet. So that program is on a different timeline, but it's going to dovetail in. So for right now, for a local government, city, county, special district, able to participate and apply for the Bridge pilot now. Those other K-12 agencies should join a little bit later. We'll have some updates on that timeline in the coming months. And we'll try and sync all of those up. In theory, the work plans will be fantastically synced up and we'll be able to just basically serve more jurisdictions and expand the timeline to do so. Can we talk a little bit about labor unions? There's been a few questions in the pre-questions that were provided, as well as those that were in the chat about sort of the integration with labor unions, any pros or cons. Nicole, I know you've had a significant amount of experience with our union relationships. As I mentioned at the beginning of the session, you know, it is a key part of our partnership and our program, and even in Channing's organizational chart, you know, it's pretty key. Water agencies, there's very, very strong relationships there. It's important. It is paramount. And so I would love to hear from our panelists about some of the union and labor relationships that you've built and how that has been successful and what you recommend in that effort.
Is that for Channing or for
Let's start
me?
with you, Nicole, and then I'll let Channing weigh in if he has any additional ones.
I think that it has been a tremendous amount of success. I find that labor and unions appreciate when they're brought to the table early in the conversations. I think that in addition to that, it also gives the potential apprentice an opportunity to even understand their rights in the with the union. Things about working around collective bargaining agreements. There are oftentimes side letters can be addressed. It is required that that the labor does sit on the Joint Apprenticeship Committee. However, there is space for either the employer or the employee representative, which is the labor. There is opportunity for them also to step back and say, well, you know, I appreciate that. We're going to step back at this time. That has to be written communications, but generally you do see where both entities, the employee representative and the employer representative, are sitting jointly on that committee, making the decisions with the help of their advisors.
Excellent. Channing, anything to add?
The only thing I would add is even at the pre-apprenticeship stage, it is important to bring in the unions, because even with the interns, if you haven't had the appropriate conversations, we had the operating engineers to understand what you're doing, to think that you're trying to displace their bargaining unit. And then depending on the size and the scale, we didn't have a lot of the traditional building trades inside of the agencies as opposed to working on the various projects. But you're definitely going to need to engage with, you know, IBEW local affiliate. You're going to need to engage with, you know, the iron workers, the plumbers, and you know, navigate those relationships, particularly as you get to the apprenticeship phase of the program.
Thank you. I did want to jump it back to you again, Channing, because in your slide deck, and you did cut out a little bit, so we jumped ahead. There was a slide about pre-apprenticeship, and there's a question about whether the pre-apprenticeship was also registered with DAS. And is there a linkage between that pre-apprenticeship and then your registered apprenticeship with DAS?
Well, that was the intent. We haven't gotten our registration with DAS. I know we completed the application. We were waiting for our responses. You know, so the pre-apprenticeship was able to operate without the full apprenticeship being in place. To even get them ready, like it was more of an internship preparation, and to get them ready to even be in the apprenticeship because of the types of the demographic populations that we were dealing with and the level of expertise they had in the workforce, we definitely needed the pre-apprenticeship to do things like teach them water, math, the culture of work, in order to even get them prepared to be ready to be in an apprenticeship program or even an internship program.
Absolutely. So there are a number of opportunities in ILD's federal project work for the pre-apprenticeship program to link to our apprenticeship programs. We're very, very excited about that. We're also conscious of the fact that soft skills are a big part of this. So when we talk about how the ecosystem of other partners in this effort are playing a role, one of those areas is in that soft skills development. There are a number of other partners in community-based organizations that have been very, very successful providing additional mentorship, additional soft skills training, additional sort of life skills training to ensure that your apprentice is actually successful with this endeavor, right? So it's a little bit, well, certainly a lot about the skills of the job, but those skills can sometimes expand beyond the hard skills, but into the soft skills. And we want to ensure that our program is comprehensive to support our local government employers while also supporting these employees and making sure that we have a model for successful sort of integration of the two. Nicole, hi. You're on mute.
Erica, thank you. I just wanted to mention the importance and the differences between a pre-apprenticeship and an apprenticeship program. While Department of Labor does not register a pre-apprenticeship program, in order for you to register here in California, it does have to have that linkage agreement. And I know sometimes the wait while you're trying to get your program up and off and that 30-day public posting period can be challenging. I think also that's where ILG can become an integral part of that, because connecting with other registered apprenticeships until you're able to build it up and still register those pre-apprentice and continue to work them through a registered program is important. And that's where ILG, again, as a convening agent, will be able to support entities like Channing's. So they'll be registered, Channing.
Fantastic. Thank you. There's a question in here about how we're encouraging support for diverse groups like women in non-traditional jobs. And so that goes back to the comment I made a little bit earlier. You know, we 100% are looking at a very regional and local effort. We'll be working directly with our local community-based organizations, with our local governments, and identifying who are the right players that are on the ground, that know the community, that have the relationships, who are those that are opinion leaders, decision makers at the community level that can really assist with making sure that our recruitment and our retention of the apprentices is key, right? So we don't want to just go after the easy, low-hanging fruit. We want to make sure that we're really doing broad outreach, deep public engagement, and ensuring not only that those that we reach out to are aware of the opportunity, but also feel supported and welcome to participate in that opportunity. And so we anticipate that depending on the initial analysis of the workforce to decide what are those gaps potentially in diversity or others, we would then target with the local agency. We'd identify the priority target areas and target populations for the effort, and then work with community-based organizations and other affiliations to support that endeavor, right? So we'll do some of that on our own, but we'll also look to those that are experts, right, in the community and in those communities of concern potentially, to make sure that we're being responsive, culturally competent, and also addressing those diverse groups and reaching them where they are and in ways that I think are going to resonate with them, specifically with language and other supports. We're getting through these. How can K-12 adult ed get more involved in developing these programs and collaborate? So 100%. Very excited for our K-12 expansion, right? So the Federal Department of Labor grant that we were awarded in July is still being kind of planned out, but our intention is for the K-12 to be online in 2025, And with that, we'll be doing some pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeship programs specifically for the education system. There are also opportunities as training partners for K-12 to be engaged, and then potentially, depending on the local agency, the opportunity for K-12 to be a recruitment pathway, right? So depending on how old you'd like your apprentices to be, and what level you'd like them to be, there may be those that are 18 years older and in that young adult range that might be appropriate as actual apprentices in a registered apprenticeship program. So we are 100% open to communicating with our local agencies and deciding what their goals are, and then partnering accordingly with schools at the K-12 level, either as for apprenticeship employers or for those potential training opportunities. And I know there are a number of K-12 schools doing things like mental and behavioral health and other training opportunities. So we are open to that and would love to hear more about opportunities. Specifically, if you go through our website and the partner with us section, you can let us know what you have in mind. Are we partnering with the State Water Board or the California Water Association? And I don't know if that's directed at Channing. We'll start with Channing in case you can answer that one on your behalf, and then I'll tell you about ours.
We will repeat the question.
With IE Works, did you partner with the State Water Board or the California Water Association?
No, we did not partner with the State Water Board. There was a partnership with Aqua and IE Works, yes. As well as the state, what they call Prima, which is an organization that organizes, supports the mutual water agencies, the private mutual water agencies. Those are the two statewide organizations we did have partnerships with.
Great. I think we answered this question about community colleges, but I wanted to jump back to it. This was a question we received, I think, in advance, that there was a question about whether we can talk more about how colleges could best work with local governments to hire students as apprentices to fill open positions. And that's part of that MOU with the California Community College Chancellor's Office that ILG has just signed. And as part of that, it's really elevating the opportunity of our community colleges to be recruitment grounds for our local governments. So often our education and partners are focused on the private sector and the private sector employers, but this is an intention for us to really focus on, hey, think of your local agency as an employer for your students. You can have student success and placement in local governments, and your curriculum aligns nicely. So this public sector is a super sector, and as part of that super sector, concept, it's got a little bit of every type of occupation within it. And so there's definitely room for many, many employees to come from the community college student population. And that's part of how we intend to partner with community colleges. In addition to the certificate programs that are offered, many of them will come from our community college partners at various colleges and districts. And those certificate programs will be that transferable certificate that the employee can then take with them. It goes on their kind of resume. It's their accomplishment that follows the employee, but it also certifies the learning, right? That our local agency employers are really wanting that high quality and well-trained workforce. So they're going to be critical to this, and we will do the matching for you if you need that help. Let's look through and see if there are any other questions we didn't cover. There were a few questions in here about public safety and fire and police and some of those traditional occupations. I would just say blanket. If you're not sure, shoot us a note. We're happy to let you know. If it's already in the fire and the public safety and in the building trades and construction, that's squarely going to be in the traditional space. And there are other apprenticeships that already exist in that traditional space in most cases, so we could refer you, but that won't be the focus of Bridge, which is non-traditional. In the utility space, a little bit like water and transit, we sometimes find that gray area where we need to go and do that O-Net crossover. And so we don't want to say no right off the bat. We want to say, let's look at it, send us what you're looking at, and we'll see. The key for us is that it is entry level and that there's wage progression opportunities, right? So that it doesn't just start and then stagnate when it comes to those wages, that there's the opportunity for progression of wages, and there's the opportunity for earning while you learn and kind of growing that skill set. So those are the things that make it really key. But we aren't certain what every single occupation will be. Some of them are a little bit gray. We acknowledge that. It doesn't make it easy to figure out with a yes or no on this line, but we will look behind the scenes and help you identify that when you reach out. There was also an interesting question. This is a good closeout. What is the future of work? How do you think about things like AI? How do you think about what technology is coming and how we are preparing our local agency workforce for that workforce of the future and the technology of the future? As we mentioned, this is an amazing upskill and reskill opportunity for our local governments, and AI is here. It's been here for a while, kind of privately, and now it's really here very visibly. And we anticipate that in our IT, in our cybersecurity, and in a lot of other occupations that are already identified, that will be a key part of the actual skills. What is beautiful about working with our education partners is that they're building those trainings into their curriculum. And so we don't have a separate AI kind of track. At the moment, we haven't had that request from a local agency, but I know that our community colleges are forward-looking, as are other educational institutions, really looking at how do we train our students to be prepared for this. It's here, it's now, and it needs to be addressed. And I know that that's part of the training that is going to be built in moving forward as we work with local agencies to decide what are the pieces, what are the steps needed to build out that training program for those apprentices. Thank you for those wonderful questions. If there's others we did not answer, please forgive us. We will go to the website, add them to the FAQ, and make sure our follow-up document incorporates quite a few. So I want to just close out by thanking our bridge partners, the James I. Wren Foundation, the Eli and Edith Broad Foundation, the U.S. Department of Labor, the California High Road Training Partnership Program managed by the Workforce Development Board. And we have so many great supporters from the League of California Cities, the State Association of Counties, and the California Special Districts Association. I also want to thank the amazing team behind the scenes at Team ILG, behind the scenes working on this webinar, behind the cameras. And I also want to thank those that are our apprenticeship partners that will also be helping us expand into our federal program with the DOL and our Apprenticeships Building America grant. So much exciting work to be done in pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships with the federal program and that federal registration alignment. So all great things. We would love to bring it to your local agency, and we would love to partner with you. I want to thank our speakers for your time today. Thank you so much for your insights and your expertise and your time, of course. We value you and everything that you bring. And we encourage those of you on the line to please stay connected and stay informed about ILG and what we are doing with our apprenticeships program and our workforce needs in general. Public sector has a lot of labor and workforce needs. It's constantly evolving. Apprenticeships can be a tool in that toolbox, and that is incorporated along with other strategies to really make sure that the public sector pipeline of workforce is strong. I want to thank you all so much for joining, and with that, have a wonderful day.